Violent crime rates are trending up in Austin. Department of Justice officials have attributed it to city policies, including defunding police. But crime has also gone up in large Texas cities that have not defunded police. Here to talk about this is Dr. Michael Sierra Arevalo, an assistant professor and violence prevention expert at UT. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, could you put into context this uptick in violent crime stats in Austin this year?
Sure. I think that it's important to recognize that first, there has been an increase. There is approximately a 55% year-over-year increase from 2019 to 2020. Now, that number sounds really scary, but we also have to remember that homicide in Austin in particular is a relatively rare phenomenon. What I think is more important to keep in mind is that Austin is one of many cities in the US that has seen increases in homicide over the past year. We're talking about Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, Baltimore, LA, and other Texas cities like Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio have all experienced increases in homicide over the past year.
What about general violent crime, especially in the other larger Texas cities? Have they gone up 55% or 50%, similar to Austin?
I don't believe that the percentage is the same across those cities. And in Austin, I believe the increase in aggravated assault is in the 30% range, not in the 50% range. But there are increases in violence specifically driven by guns. And that is something that we have seen in other Texas cities as well, though the actual percentage I don't believe is the same.
Why do you think the increase in violent crime in Austin? How do you explain it?
I mean, it's a great question, and it's a question that I think can be applied to any city. The short answer is that criminologists and social scientists have been arguing for decades about what is it that causes violence? What is it that causes homicide? Right now, there are a couple of prevailing theories that will probably take years for us to get good data on, but we have to remember that we're in the middle of a once-in-a-lifetime event. The COVID pandemic has shaken up all of our social structures. And so problems that we know are related to violence, things like joblessness, homelessness, alcohol abuse, all of those things are being affected by a pandemic. We've also seen record gun sales across the US, many of which are going to first-time gun owners. This combination of factors is undoubtedly tied to violence. We don't know which one of those factors is driving the phenomenon, but we can say fairly conclusively is that this is not just an Austin phenomenon. It's something affecting other cities across the country as well.
Talking about the first-time gun owners, is there evidence that first-time gun owners are purchasing weapons and then going out and using them for crime?
I don't believe there's any indication at this point that we are talking about first-time gun owners going out and committing crimes with them, such as in the case of robbery. However, we do need to try and figure out where the weapons are coming from that are being used in these kinds of offenses. When we think about homicides that usually happen are not random daylight shootings. What usually happens is something that's happening between people who know one another. Very often it's between family members or friends.
Right. You know, the DOJ has said when you defund police, release offenders, that you're going to see a rise in violence. Is that what's happening here? What do you make of their reasoning?
So the reasoning is deceptively simple, and it's a neat story to tell, but there is no data that suggests that the individuals who are being released from prison or from jails, many or most of whom are nonviolent offenders who are being released back, are in any way involved with the increase in homicides, aggravated assaults, or other kinds of violent crimes that are occurring in cities like Austin or in cities across the country.
Well, thankfully, the year is quickly coming to an end. Dr. Michael Sierra Arevalo, thank you very much for talking with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.